Hello everybody, Tom Morley here from FOSS 365, where we use free open source software 365 days a year. I'm pretty excited because the new Natron compositor just released 2.3.15. So let's take a look at it. Use your favorite search engine and search for the Natron compositor website. I'll put the link down below in the description. And once you get to the website, if you just want to download it, hit the download button and that will bring you to this section. You can download it for whatever operating system you need. I'm going to take a quick look at the GitHub section because I want to go to the releases and kind of show you what they've been doing behind the scenes. There was 22 release candidates in the last year. So that means that the programmers behind the scenes were doing a lot of bug fixing and they were just releasing release candidates. So they had 22 different versions before the 2.3.15 version today actually released. They did a lot of bug fixing. They did a lot of support on the gmic plugins. Gmic, however you want to pronounce it. So they updated the version that they use for the gmic plugins, and a lot of the plugins work a little faster, and there are more to use in Natron. They fixed a bunch of the nodes in the system, noise, chromatic aberration. The one I was kind of most intrigued by was they've got now an audio curve node in Natron. A few people asked me on my channel, well, that's great, but there's no audio support in Natron. There's still no quote-unquote audio support. There's two different audio nodes. I'm only going to go over the one that they list here, the audio curve node. But you're not going to have audio in Natron. What the audio curve node will do for you is that will evaluate a sound file and give you different values in the shape of a curve that you can use to drive other animations, such as like text wiggling back and forth, like I did in the beginning intro for this video. And we'll go over how I did that real quick. So a lot of work behind the scenes has been done to get release 2.3.15 up and running. So, thank you to all the programmers that did all the hard work. We appreciate it, and we look forward to helping Natron become even greater as time goes by. So I've already downloaded the latest version of Natron, and you see it here. And what I wanted to do is just go over that audio curve node that I was so excited about seeing in 2.3.15. Let's take a peek at it. So let's go ahead and press the tab key, bring up the search. Let's type in audio. And you'll see that there's two different nodes here. There's an audio curve and an audio VLC. I'll probably do a video on the audio VLC a little bit later, but I'm just going to touch on the audio curve for right now. I think the audio VLC node will kind of tie into a player so that it plays the audio along with what you're seeing in Natron. I think CG Virus has already done a video on that. I might link to it in the description. I will link to it in the description so you can go see that, but I might do a video myself a little bit later on. So we've got the audio curve up here, and it looks like we've got a file path. It looks like it needs a frame rate and a frame range. So this is pretty important. You need to match the frame rate in this node with the frame rate in your project. So let's go ahead and take a look in our project and see what our frame rate is. If we look down here, you see that our frame rate is 24, our first frame is 1, our last frame is 250. So we need those settings to match up here, and they do. Frame rate is 24, we start at 1, and we end at 250. Now that's important because if you don't match the frame rate with the audio curve node, when you generate it and you try and match it up to your audio, it's not going to sync because the frame rates are not going to match. So if you're at 30 frames per second for your project, make sure that you change the frame rate in the audio curve node to 30 frames per second. So match your project. That's key. Now down here you've got a curve start at 0, which is by default not selected. So what does that mean? We've got a curve height X and a curve height Y. So that means that when I evaluate my sound file, whatever that sound file may be, it's going to have negative and positive values based on the sound file that I input into this node. So I'm going to have I could have all the way down from a negative 100 up to a positive 100. So if I don't want that, and that's a little bit too extreme for me, which it is from me kind of rotating my audio file left and right and whatnot, I'm thinking I probably want it to be only about in the range of 30 in both the X and Y. So I'm going to change that to 30 for my needs. You might even want to put that at 1, so you go from -1 to 1, and you say to yourself, -1 to 1, why would I want animation data in that range? And maybe it would be for your scale, because when you're at the scale of 1 with your images, it's filling your view completely. So maybe you want it to kind of zoom in and out. Well, you wouldn't want 30, you'd want maybe 1 for the curve height. So we need an audio file, so I'm going to go to an audio file that I have in my G drive, and I'm going to pick the unexpected MP3. Now, here's one thing I ran into. I downloaded some audio files, some CC0 audio files in OGG format. And this audio curve node, as it is now, does not support certain audio formats. So I know it supports MP3, probably supports WAV. I haven't tried that yet, but I know for a fact it supports MP3. So all I did was used Audacity and converted the OGG file into an MP3. And I'm going to load that unexpected MP3 file. So I load it up in here. And when I load it up in here, watch what just happened, and be careful about this. Is when I loaded the file, my end frame range here went all the way up to 4,608. Now, why is that? That's because my audio file is much longer than my project length of only 250 frames. So I want to cut that back down because I don't need to generate anything beyond 250. So I'm going to cut that down to 250 so that when I click the generate button, I only want to generate audio curves for frames 1 through 250. So I'm going to click generate here, and you'll see that it's still working because the generate tab is still highlighted, and you'll know when it's done generating the audio curves because this generate button will no longer be highlighted. And there you go, it's not highlighted anymore. So now let's pipe the audio curve into the viewer. You're going to see that actually nothing happens, and that's because it only supplies curve data, that is animation data that you can use to drive other nodes. So you're never going to see it. So let's disconnect that and let's add some text. So I hit tab, did a search for text node, and I don't need that to be attached to it. I just want to do this so that I have some text. I'm going to center interact with this text. I'm going to change that to FOSS 365. I'm going to give it an outside edge, and red is fine. Let's change the size a little bit larger so that we can see it. Let's change the color inside the font to something a little bit more orangey maybe. Yeah, that's fine. So now I have some text, but still the text is not doing anything. It's just hanging out there. But it'd be nice if I had that text kind of animating to the different beats of the music, so to speak. So I've got that information here in my audio curve, right? So one of the things that I could do if I wanted to kind of rotate the text node has some ability to move itself around, but I think I'd rather, for right now, just add a transform node. So I press the T button to add a transform node, because the transform node's going to allow me to rotate it kind of left and right. And you can see that if I look at a rotation of 30, that's about where I'd like to see it. And that's why I picked 30 for my audio file. So how do I get the animation from my audio curve to go into my rotate of my transform node? Well, it's really simple. You can go to your audio curve information down here, and you can pick either X or Y because rotate is only one value. And if you right click on it, you can click copy, and you can link to this curve data by going over and clicking copy link. Now I can paste that copied link to any of the values here in the transform. So I'm going to right click on rotate and I'm going to say paste link. And when I do, you'll see that this automatically turns blue and will be the exact same value as the curve data is down here. So now if I go back to the beginning and I press play, you'll see that my text is going wild, right? It's going pretty wild. So that looks pretty horrible. One way that you can kind of make it look like it's not so jerky is by adding some motion blur to the transform node, and then you'll see that it basically fills in the gap when it's doing those radical twists. And that's kind of what I did in the intro. I also added some chromatic aberration and heck, let's throw in the star field. I think I got the star field from the shader toy node, so let's go ahead and let's press tab to bring up the search. Let's look for the shader toy node. There's the shader toy node. And it popped up there. Now if I grab the number 1 pipe and I pipe it into the shader toy, that's not what we want. The shader toy, that's shader toy by default. But if we go over into the description here for the shader toy and we hit the image shader, we drop that down, we've got a bunch of presets we can use in here. And one of them is, I don't know, was it Star Tunnel? I'm going to click Star Tunnel. That's what it was right there. So I use the Star Tunnel. And if you look at the Star Tunnel, you can press play and you'll see that's the same thing that I had in the background. So all we need to do is merge these two things. So I'm going to highlight the transform node because I want that to be on, the text to be on top of or above the B background. So I'm going to press the merge, and there's my merge. I'm going to merge in the shader toy, and then I'm going to grab my 1 pipe and connect it to my merge. Now, what I did is you could leave it at over if that's how you like, but I think I did a top because that gave me a little bit better sharpness to the text. I think that's what I did, but you can mess with the different operations here to get exactly what you want. And now the backgrounds, this is a shader toy related issue, is the background looks lighter than it probably should be. It should be a little bit darker than that, and that's because shader toys, if you've been watching some of Williams' live streams on Facebook and the Natron Facebook page, you'll know that the color space is off a little bit. So one of the things we can do to fix that is we can just change the input color space, because the input color space from the shader toy is sRGB. So let's go ahead and grab that. I'm going to just right click and show you where that is. Right click, go to color. I'm going to go down to ICIO, and I'm going to go to color space. Grab the color space node, and it will pop up. And I'm going to disconnect my shader toy to the merge. I'm going to connect the color space node, and again grab the B and put that into the color space. You'll see nothing's changed. Nothing's changed because all that's doing is taking the input from the shader toy and passing it right onto the merge. We're going to change it a little bit, so we're going to do the input color space here, and the input is of type sRGB. So when I do that, you see that the background changed to a little bit darker. So that's exactly what I did in my intro video. Now I think maybe 30 is a little bit excessive for the back and forth, but you can mess with motion blur a little bit. And again, I threw in some chromatic aberration and some other things in there. But you know, there you go. You've got the text moving to the amplitude of the sound file, but still, again, in Natron, there's no audio in Natron. So if you wanted to hear it while you were watching it, I think that's what that other node is for. I haven't gotten that far. Again, I might touch on that in another video, but don't forget I linked to CG Virus's video below, and I think he did a video on how to use that node. But so now what you would do is you would render this out. And how do I render that out? I press W to create a write node. I would name the file something. If I was going to put it in the G, I'd just say new movie, or whatever you want to name it, .mp4, because I want to do it in MP4 format. And you click save, and when you do, then you've got your write node. Grab the source, put it into the merge so that you're writing out what you see. And I do a couple of things over here. I don't use the pre-multiplied. I turn it to opaque. I change the encoding to from medium quality to high quality, and if you want, you can change this from medium to fast or faster, whatever, depends on how much of a hurry you're in to actually write out the information. Another thing that I like to do before I actually hit the render is I like to clear all the caches, because I don't need that cache information anymore. Oh, important in Natron, before you do anything else, if you've got your project started, I would say about every 10 or 15 minutes, save your project. Natron auto saves sometimes, but don't rely on that. save your projects about every 10 to 15 minutes. And we didn't save our project, so before I press render, I would just name it something. I'd click in here and then put in new project or whatever, and save it. So then I would clear the cache. I'd clear all caches. Now I'm ready to do my rendering. And I would go over here to the render button, hit the render button, and it should start rendering my animation. And it is. So rather than bore you with sitting through this this process of it rendering this animation to a file, I've already done that. And now we'll just really quickly jump into Olive, which this is not an Olive video, but we'll jump into Olive. We'll combine those two things so that you see how to do it, so that you can get the final result. So we'll, for right now, I'm going to just stop that, and actually I don't need Natron anymore, so I'm going to close that. I've already saved it, and I'm going to bring up Olive. You can use, this is so simple, it's really just encoding the audio to the video. You could use any video editor. I like Olive because it's fast for things like this. And I'm going to open my folder, which has that information in it, which is in G. New movie, if that's not complete, I can't cancel it because it looks like it's not finished. So I pre-rendered a file out there, and that's this that you see here with no audio. And so really all you've got to do is you've got to take your let's bring Olive a little larger. You just bring your rendered file from Natron, drop it in here, and then you can also grab your music, plop it in the project area, then bring it down. Now you've got your audio. Grab your razor because the sound is too large, cut it right there. Grab your selection tool, select just that section, hit the delete key. So now you've got your project right here that's all set. And you want a default transition so that it goes from black to your movie, then back down to black. So add a default transition on both of these. Add a default transition. Now you're all set. If I click play, you'll see that now you've got everything linked up together. Sorry if that was real loud, because I think that was really loud. I had my mixer like way too loud. Sorry about that. But yeah, let me turn this desktop audio down, and yeah, there you go. You see that you get exactly what is expected. Now, one thing that I will say about when you render this out, the audio might be out of sync. That's not Natron's fault. Olive has a little bit of a bug sometimes with audio and syncing up audio. And if it seems like your audio is not syncing up in Olive, there's a simple trick to fix that. And just click the plus key here, hit a solid color, and add a little bit of a solid color down here in the back. So at the trailing end, just change that color to a black. So you're just adding a little bit of extra black video at the end to kind of help Olive out in keeping the audio in sync with your movie. So at least this is a little trick that I found works most of the time. So then you just click on the file here and you export your video as an MP4 again, and I would say the quality 12, the lower number you use here, the better the quality is going to be for your video. I use anywhere from 15 to 10, depends on the quality I'm looking for. If I'm looking for a real good quality, I drop it down to a 10, and then you just click on export and you export this out to wherever you want. And I exported it out to FOSS 365 audio, and then you've got what the exact same thing that I had in the intro to the video. You have this here. So it's pretty cool that the audio curve is available in Natron. So go down and grab the new version of Natron, test it out, enjoy. Thank you to all the programmers on Natron. You guys rock, and we'll catch you in the next one.